This is my response to a letter from Sam Matthews dated the 5th of March 2018. The letter states that you have been appointed as the investigating officer, so hello to you. I'm sending you my opening statement followed by information about my background, and I answer your questions after those. I agree that the Labour Party needs to look at complaints and should investigate them thoroughly if they believe that there is a case to answer. I will answer all the questions, but I do wonder if the Labour Party looked at the allegations in any detail to determine if the complaint was valid or just malicious. I have looked at the allegations, and I have to say that these appear to be totally malicious, and I am providing all the evidence to back this up. I believe that if anyone from the Labour Party had taken a cursory glance at the evidence, they would not have come to the conclusion that there was a case to answer here, and would not therefore have sent me a letter. Malicious allegations intended to smear somebody and to do damage to them should also be looked into if indeed it is decided that these allegations are without merit. Anti-Semitism is an appalling crime, but so too is slander and harassment. These allegations are both clumsy and justified in every sense. Having looked at the allegations, it seems to me that somebody has trawled through my social media account, looked at a few headlines, without reading the full article or video content, and suggested to you that these have broken the rules. If this is the case, then I have good reason to believe that these allegations were made with malicious intent to cause me upset, to intimidate me, and to cause me a great deal of stress. These allegations have indeed caused me a great deal of stress, and I want to make the point again that the Labour Party should look at the strength of an allegation before sending out a letter, because inevitably these letters do and are causing considerable stress to people and making them very unhappy. This is not good for the Labour Party, and it is my belief that yes, there are people with anti-Semitic views in the Labour Party, but there are also people in the Labour Party who want to smear and do damage to people who oppose the occupation of the West Bank. This tactic has been used against our leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Both are serious matters. As you will see on the next few pages, I have been to the occupied territory as a guest of the Bishop of Jerusalem, at a time when I was a member of the Dorset Palestine-Israeli Peace Group. There were Jewish people in our group, and we all saw the occupation at first hand, and I know what I am talking about when it comes to the situation in the Holy Land. Our trip to the Holy Land was organised by Christians Aware and was led by the Reverend Timothy Biles from Sherborne in Dorset. When we returned to the UK, we compiled a report criticising the occupation based on what we had seen. This report was sent to MPs and members of the European Parliament. I am well aware of the power of words, and I am well aware of the definitions, nuances and meanings of different words that crop up when people talk about the occupation. People are using words to manipulate and to smear people. So before we start, I should state what I understand certain words to mean. Occupation. The illegal occupation of the West Bank by forces of the State of Israel. The illegal settlements, built contrary to international law, are the most visible sign of this occupation. Zionism. The desire for a Jewish homeland. It is absolutely fine to want a Jewish homeland, and the State of Israel does exist, but this must be done legally. So there are some Zionists that I would agree with and some I would not agree with. I would not agree with a Zionist who wanted to annex the West Bank. I also know that a Zionist does not have to be Jewish, i.e. there are Christian Zionists. Anyone can be a Zionist. I only condemn Zionists who want to acquire Palestinian land illegally. Anti-Semitism. I know that most people think of anti-Semitism as hatred towards Jews, and this must be condemned and challenged. But it is also a fact that Arabs are Semitic people, so logically someone could also be accused of anti-Semitism by demonstrating hatred towards Arabs. I know that this appears to have been lost by the mainstream, but history books confirm this. Some Jewish people have been accused of anti-Semitism, but personally I think this is ridiculous. There needs to be another word for someone who rages against their own people. Other people may use these words to mean different things, but this is what I understand by them. The next part of this statement will be a short piece about myself and why I have a special interest in the Middle East. I hope you will begin to see it as interesting, informative, rather than anything else. The answers to the questions that you have asked for can be found towards the back of this statement. I believe in peace and freedom, and there are many things going on in the world at the moment that make me angry. The question of Palestine being just one of them. Since rejoining the Labour Party, I've been campaigning very hard, and I was the chair of the Mid Dorset and North Poole constituency until November 2017. I stood down from this role in order to become the chair of the Dorset Labour Campaign Forum, and I hope to carry on working for the Labour Party for a long time to come. Damien Stone, 11th of March 2018. My background. My name is Damien Stone, and until recently I was a civil servant of 14 years' service. I am 48 years old and I have a Bachelor of Science degree. I joined the Labour Party in 1992 and I was a Labour councillor for 8 years. I resigned from the Labour Party in 2003 over the Iraq War. My decision to resign has been vindicated by the passing of time. All but a few people now see the Iraq War as a terrible mistake that led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. The lack of planning was unforgivable. I rejoined the Labour Party in 2015 because Jeremy Corbyn seems to be the only leader for a long time who talks about peace with real integrity. Tony Blair, Gordon Brown and Ed Miliband all voted for the Iraq War. In 2014, I was a member of the Dorset Palestinian-Israeli Peace Group, and on the 18th of May 2004 I went on a Christians Aware visit to Israel and the occupied territory. What I witnessed was truly shocking. The trip was organised by the Reverend Timothy Biles, and we were the guests of the Bishop of Jerusalem, the Right Reverend Ria Abu el-Assal. When we visited Jerusalem, we stayed with the Bishop for 5 days at St. George's Guest House. During the trip, we met journalists, priests, human rights activists, President Yasser Arafat and Mordecai Vanunu. On our return to the UK, the Reverend Timothy Biles and the rest of our group produced a report, and this was sent to MPs and MEPs. The Christian group concluded that we found a new form of apartheid, expressed in systematic abuses of human rights as a result of Israeli government policies which defy the UN Charter on Human Rights. This apartheid is also adversely affecting Jewish citizens. We want peace for all, both Jews and Arabs. Our group visited Bethlehem University and we met students who have a real dilemma on their hands. Should they live under occupation and have their studies continually disrupted, or should they leave the occupied territory? A lecturer showed us a hole left in a wall after the Israeli army, the IDF, fired a Tau missile at the university. We were told that the missile had been fired in a deliberate attempt to intimidate and frighten students. We were also shown a memorial stone on the university campus to commemorate a student, Isaac Abu Sroor, who was shot dead by the IDF. We saw numerous illegal settlements all over the West Bank. These are a barrier to peace and demonstrate that the occupation is not about peace but acquiring land. Why would you build Jewish settlements on occupied land unless you intended to keep them? We met Father Rayad from Tai Bay, another village in the West Bank, and he told us about people dying at checkpoints. A pregnant woman was denied access through a checkpoint when she was about to give birth, and no ambulance was allowed into the village. She died at the checkpoint, and we were told that this was not the only time that this has happened in the occupied territory. 78 women had given birth at checkpoints in the West Bank, and this had led to 30 fatalities. We also met the mayor of Awata, a village in the West Bank. He told us how their land was being systematically stolen, and about settlers who behave in an intimidating way, even towards children. We also visited the National Society of the Visually Handicapped and met an amazing woman called Helena Shahade, who somehow manages to keep her school for blind children open. Blind children, who are disadvantaged enough as it is, struggle to get to their school because checkpoints are regularly closed and the path of the wall has added miles to the distance that some parents have to travel to get them to school. This visit was by far the most upsetting of them all. Pictured here is the group leader, Reverend Timothy Biles, saying a prayer for a Bethlehem University student who was shot dead by the Israeli Defense Force, aged just 22. The occupation has a profound effect on young people. When we arrived in the village of Awata, we had bought pens to give to the children. We had been told that these were not easy to get hold of and that these were better than sweets that rotted teeth. However, when we arrived in Awata, we noticed that the children were running away from us because they thought we were settlers who often act in an intimidating way. Their village is largely cut off because of the occupation and the wall, so there is no tourism, very little work and not much contact with the outside world. They were amazed to have a busload of pilgrims arrive and took no time in opening up their shops for us, but it is very sad that their lives are under occupation and so hard and mundane. The occupation has led to extreme levels of poverty and degradation. You see it everywhere. Children are malnourished, and it must hurt them very much to see their parents so helpless and trying so desperately to put food on the table. Amongst the adults, you feel their sense of shame that they cannot feed or provide properly for their children. On coming back from the occupied territory, I felt compelled to raise awareness of the plight of those living under the occupation. Our group also visited the Arab Association for Human Rights in Nazareth. We met the British journalist Jonathan Cook, who wrote for The Guardian, and two human rights activists, Mohammed Zaidan and Issam Makhoul. They talked about the occupation and the effect it has on people living in Israel too. Our group also met Mordecai Vanunu. He had just been released from an Israeli prison after spending many years behind bars for telling the world that Israel was secretly building nuclear weapons. For many people, he had been a prisoner of conscience. Our host, the Bishop of Jerusalem, offered Vanunu sanctuary at St. George's Guest House, where we were staying. We spent an evening talking to him. Even today, and despite having served his time in prison, he is not allowed to leave Israel. Not only is this vindictive, it is also against international law. At the end of our pilgrimage, we met the Palestinian President Yasser Arafat. As a Christian group, he wanted to talk to us about what the occupation means for Christians. He told us that the Israeli army had blown up the Church of St. Barbara, the oldest Christian church in the Holy Land. This was done to make way for the wall. Local Palestinians and church authorities had asked for the wall to be built 50 yards either way instead, but no, the church was demolished. All of the above should help to explain why I am opposed to the occupation of the West Bank and why I post news stories about it. I have seen it with my own eyes, and the Bishop of Jerusalem asked us personally to make a change for the better. I post to raise awareness and to be a voice for the people who we met in the Holy Land and who are suffering so badly even today. The occupation must end. I appeared in an edition of the Christians Aware magazine, an article that mentioned our trip to the Holy Land. As it says, we left the region keen to work for peace with justice for all. Following our trip, as I said, to the Holy Land, we produced a report and we sent it to MPs and MEPs documenting what we had seen in the occupied territory. I can make the whole report available if anyone would like to see it. We also received a thank you letter from the Bishop of Jerusalem. In this letter, he implores all good people of the world to make a change for the better. And that is what I am trying to do for the Labour Party and for the people who we visited in the West Bank and who are suffering because of the occupation. We also visited the Arab Association for Human Rights, where we met the UK journalist Jonathan Cook, who still writes very powerfully today about the situation in the occupied territory. He lives in Nazareth and he knows just what the occupation means for the Arab minority in Israel as well. The Arab Association for Human Rights issued us with this report about the injustice of the occupation. I can make the whole report available if anyone would like to see it. Now, I'm now going to address the questions that you have asked me with regards to these allegations. I can confirm that these are indeed my Facebook and Twitter pages. I confirm that I posted and shared these articles. You have been notified about 6 social media posts, and you are asking me what I meant by posting these. I will deal with each one of these one at a time, and also answer questions 4, 5, 6 and 7 at the same time. In summary, I maintain that I have not breached Labour Party rules, and most of these posts have come from well-known news sources, so I would post similar posts again. The authors of the 6 posts were Red Labour. I posted this without comment. The Electronic Intifada, I posted that without comment. Al Jazeera, I posted that one with one simple matter-of-fact comment that criticises the US and the Israeli government. Channel 4, I posted that post without comment. Number 5 from Media Lens, I posted that without comment. And post number 6 from Al Jazeera, I posted that without comment. As you can see, all except one of these posts was sent without comment. As I haven't commented on 5 of these posts, it's difficult to see how anybody could safely conclude they know what I think about these articles or videos. Where is there any evidence that I even have an opinion about these posts or hold a particular opinion that would warrant a complaint? All 6 of these posts were sent because they were interesting and relevant to many of the discussions that people are having today, including the occupation of the West Bank and Labour Party members. The one comment that was made is a simple statement of fact that aims to criticise both the US and Israeli governments. To suggest anything more is illogical, and it fuels my suspicion that these accusations are malicious and a deliberate attempt to smear me. If someone supports the occupation of the West Bank, then it is possible that they might indeed want to damage me in some way, and if that's what the complainant is trying to do, then they need to provide at least some evidence that suggests these posts were sent for any particular reason. All of these posts are interesting and informative, and over the years I've posted thousands of articles and video links on many different topics, and I deem all of them to be interesting. I would not have posted them otherwise. As I have tried to explain, I have my reasons for posting articles and videos about the occupation of the West Bank, and it is difficult to find an article that has anything positive to say about the Israeli government whilst it allows the occupation to continue and more illegal settlements to be built. Their actions have been condemned by the UK government and the UN. So when I post something about the occupation, it is very likely to be critical of the players who are allowing the occupation to continue, and they will mainly be politicians, but I am also critical of the actions of the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, because it maintains the occupation by force. I am also critical of the Saudi Arabian government, but that does not make me Islamophobic. If someone were to suggest such a thing, I would not expect anybody to take them seriously, and I am slightly astounded that I am being asked to defend these 6 posts. One of the posts I've been asked to explain is simply a link to the official Channel 4 YouTube page showing an interview between John McTernan, a Labour Party member, and George Galloway, a recent Member of Parliament. I sent the post because the interview is very interesting and relevant, and it shines light on a debate that is currently taking place inside the Labour Party. So it's a Channel 4 link to a Channel 4 interview between an old and new Labour Party member, and I've sent it without comment, and I'm being asked to explain this. Really? It seems obvious to me that whoever was trawling through my Facebook and Twitter accounts was looking to do me harm by finding titles that looked controversial and decided these ought to be enough to embarrass me. The title of this post was George Galloway, Zionism and Nazism Cooperated. And who chose that title? Channel 4 chose and wrote that title. When you repost something on YouTube, you don't get to choose your own title. So if the complainant has an issue with the title or the content of this link, they need to take this up with Channel 4. It's ridiculous that I am being asked to defend reposting a Channel 4 link. I think the complainant saw the title, assumed whatever they wanted to assume, and then set out to notify you. But if anyone looks closely into this, they will surely conclude that this is a bodged attempt to smear me. If the complainant had bothered to look at the link, the news organisation responsible for it, the content of the interview, and knew that it was a Channel 4 title, they surely would not have been so careless as to make this look like they had legitimate concerns about my behaviour. The complainant seems to be fishing around for damaging posts without making the effort to look at the links properly themselves. I would say that every single one of these posts has been singled out because of the title. But if you go on to look at the actual content, the complainant has a problem here because all of the titles were dreamt up by authors and broadcasters, and most of them are well known, i.e. Channel 4, Al Jazeera, Media Lens and the Electronic Intifada. This really is a case of the title sounding worse than the content, and the complainant seems to think that the title must be linked to some openly hostile content. If they had bothered even to look, they would have discovered that this is not the case. Look at the two posts named The Day Israel Attacked America, both of them from Al Jazeera. If someone was trying to smear me and thought they could do this by choosing a few posts with anti-Israeli sounding names, but then couldn't be bothered to look at the content, then they might indeed have chosen these two posts. The fact is, though, they did not do their homework properly. I suspect they assume that these articles referred to the conspiracy theory that Israel was involved in 9/11. People who believe this have been called anti-Semites. However, and this surely exposes the lazy attempt to smear me, because these two articles refer to an event that happened years ago that isn't even disputed. The attack on a US warship called the USS Liberty by Israel is an undisputed fact of history. What is disputed is whether or not the attack was accidental or deliberate. Whether or not it was accidental, Al Jazeera carried out an investigation and uncovered new evidence. This story is not generally well known, but it was important enough for the BBC to make a documentary about it. The video is on YouTube. The complainant needs to explain how posting a TV interview between John McTernan and George Galloway and a link to a story about an historical event that actually happened and that is not disputed has somehow breached Labour Party rules. So, 4 of the posts were from Al Jazeera, Media Lens and the Electronic Intifada. All of these are serious news organisations with a strong media presence. Again, if the complainant had any serious concerns that these posts were anti-Semitic, then they should be raising this with the content providers. Post number 1. I posted this article because it has real relevance to the debate currently going on inside the Labour Party. I have to say that I know nothing about Red Labour or who they are. The part that interested me in this post was the line about a Jewish person being thrown out of the Labour Party for being anti-Semitic. I don't like the idea of a Jewish person being called an anti-Semite, but some people may think that this is reasonable. Some Jewish people who are against the occupation, who think the West Bank should be a homeland for the Palestinians, have been called self-hating Jews. This is a really nasty thing to say, which is why I tend to reject the notion that a Jewish person can be anti-Semitic, because it makes that particular insult difficult to stick. Others may disagree. The Labour Party has expelled Jewish people for being anti-Semitic, but this makes me feel uneasy. It's like we are buying into the notion of a self-hating Jew. Can a gay person be a homophobe? This question makes me feel uneasy, but it is an interesting question. I am particularly interested in this subject because I believe that the media and others are not using the word Semitic in a correct way. I posted this article because it reminded me of one of the first books I read about the Middle East. Before going to the West Bank, I bought a book called The History of the Arabs by Philip K. Hitti. I have gone back to the book, and just as I thought, it reads that the 2 surviving representatives of the Semitic people are the Arabians and the Jews. The Arabs are Semitic people too, but you never hear the term anti-Semitism being used against someone who hates Arabs. If an Israeli soldier does something unlawful to a Palestinian, or if a Palestinian does something unlawful to an Israeli, are they both being anti-Semitic? It has always puzzled me, if the history books are correct, how the term anti-Semitism came to be used only for hatred towards Jewish people and not for hatred against Arabs. As I've said, I don't like the notion that a Semitic person, whether they be Jewish or Arab, can be labelled anti-Semitic. If other people want to do that, it's entirely up to them. Post number 2. How Israel lobby manufactured UK Labour Party anti-Semitism crisis. I posted this article again because it was relevant to a debate taking place inside the Labour Party. It's ironic that the article touches on the very reason why I'm writing this statement today. I am extremely worried that people are using smears to destabilise the Labour Party and to attack those who are against the occupation of the West Bank. Jeremy Corbyn has been labelled anti-Semitic, and we need to be robust in defending him and exposing those who attempt to smear him and others simply because they want to see the West Bank return to the Palestinian people. They don't have a home and they need one. Why prolong their agony and at the same time allow settlements to be built? If anyone thought that a smear campaign against Jeremy Corbyn and other Labour figures was just make-believe, we now know that there was a plot to destabilise people, including Tories who were against the occupation of the West Bank, i.e. Tory Alan Duncan MP. Al Jazeera first reported this story, and then it was picked up by the Western press, including The Guardian. There have been rumours for a long time that this was going on, and now there is undeniable proof. Israeli diplomat caught on camera plotting to take down UK MPs. Am I the victim of a similar takedown, but of people on social media? I don't know for sure, but my complainant has accused me of breaching party rules merely for posting a Channel 4 news interview between Labour Party members old and new, so I do have to wonder. In the same way that my motives are being questioned, Al Jazeera was challenged about its investigation into Israeli embassy plans to discredit British MPs, but was found to have acted entirely properly. Ofcom dismisses complaints about Al Jazeera's The Lobby. Broadcasting regulator throws out allegations against an investigation which revealed the Israeli lobby's inner workings. The Labour Party needs to be keeping an open mind about any accusations being made by people, because people are beginning to think that there is a witch hunt going on. Post number 3. I posted this link to an Al Jazeera documentary because it tells a very interesting story about a real event that happened in 1967. The post is called The Day Israel Attacked America. The BBC even made a documentary about it, and Al Jazeera produced this documentary after a recent new investigation. I would recommend this documentary to anyone who is interested in the Middle East and the media. Why has this story been largely ignored by the mainstream? Anyone who is serious about understanding the Middle East would be fascinated by this story. Because when you watch it, you wonder why you've never heard this story before. The reason that most people have never heard of this story is probably because it is embarrassing to the governments of the US and Israel. The Israeli Air Force attacked this American surveillance ship and killed several American sailors, and whether or not this was a case of mistaken identity, it is an embarrassing story for the Israeli government, which is why I made the matter-of-fact comment that this is something that the US and Israel do not want you to know. They don't, and they never talk about it, but luckily the internet, especially the social media, is a good place to share stories that do not appear in the mainstream. The US and Israel do not want people to know about this tragic incident because it is a matter of fact that Israel relies on American aid to maintain the occupation, and this can only happen whilst the American public are on board. This event might make some of them think twice about supporting Israel. This is common sense. I don't see anything controversial about posting a link from an Al Jazeera program. Al Jazeera named the program and provided the content. My suspicion again is that the complainant thought this link was about the wild conspiracy theory that Israel did 9/11. I don't believe this, but some people do. Post number 4. The post is called George Galloway, Zionism and Nazism Cooperated. I posted this link because although it is not immediately obvious, it takes you to a very interesting discussion between Labour Party member John McTernan and ex-Labour Party member and recent MP George Galloway. The interview is still on YouTube. As I stated earlier, I am firmly of the opinion that the complainant is making these complaints in order to damage me and has done so by choosing a few headlines that sound controversial and posted them to you without reading them. The complainant has obviously chosen this post because it contains the word Zionism and Nazism, but they have been too lazy or too negligent to even bother to see where this link takes you. It takes you to a Channel 4 interview recorded by Channel 4 featuring an interview between two Labour Party members, one ex, that Channel 4 have chosen to call themselves George Galloway, Zionism and Nazism Cooperated. The complainant needs to explain to you and to me how this in any way whatsoever could come anywhere near to breaching Labour Party rules. This is a clumsy and malicious claim because there is nothing in it. The suggestion that this is an anti-Semitic post and of my creation is palpably absurd, and they need to be held account for this. You cannot go round accusing people of being anti-Semitic in a cavalier and an incompetent way. To say that I am upset by this particular accusation is an understatement. I may speak to Channel 4 about this and let them know that their posts are being used to smear people in the Labour Party. That could become an interesting Channel 4 news report. Post 5. I posted this link because it links to an article written by Media Lens, one of my favourite news organisations. Again, the title is misleading. The link is from Market Oracle. I don't know anything about them, but the link simply takes you to an article written by Media Lens that starts with the words, "Soon after the Malaysian airline MH17 crashed near Donetsk." You can see below, it says that the article was written by DE and DC. DE is David Edwards from Media Lens, and DC is David Cromwell from Media Lens. Media Lens is a highly respected news group that holds the mainstream media to account, especially the BBC, because it is a public broadcaster and we pay for it. It should be held to account, and Media Lens does that very well. A typical observation from Media Lens would read like this. The BBC often refer to the Syrian regime as being backed by Russia, but it does never refer to the Saudi Arabian regime as being backed by the UK and the US. Whatever side of the political fence someone might be on, they do make a very good point here. It is very easy for the news media to phrase things in such a way as to deceive the public. Whether or not anyone reads or agrees with the Media Lens, their work is incisive and it aims to hold our news media to account. Why shouldn't it? We want journalists and TV news broadcasters to be kept on their toes. BBC News coverage of Jeremy Corbyn seemed to be highly biased until the general election came along and news organisations became wary about the media meeting impartiality standards. Media Lens, David Cromwell, writer, journalist, has written books Why Are We the Good Guys, Newspeak in the 21st Century, Guardians of Power, Private Planet, and Surviving Climate Change. The other editor, David Edwards, has written for ZNet. He's written a book called Free to be Human, Intellectual Self-Defense in the Age of Illusions, and The Compassionate Revolution, Radical Politics and Buddhism. I have complained to the BBC myself on many occasions, and I think that all Labour Party members should be concerned about the press coverage that Jeremy Corbyn received before the general election campaign began in 2017 and since. Media Lens is run by two people who gave up their day jobs to devote their time to holding the media to account. Post number 6, the final post. This is another link to the documentary that is subject of post 3. Again, it's just called The Day Israel Attacked America. As I have said, it seems likely the complainant may have thought that this was a reference to 9/11, but if they had bothered to look at the link, they would have seen that it was a link to a documentary about the Israeli attack on the American spy ship, the USS Liberty. In fact, the Israel attack, The fact that Israel attacked the American ship is not disputed by the US or Israel, so it seems ludicrous to raise a concern about a documentary that explores what is an historical event. I would like you to contact the complainant and ask them to justify each of their 6 allegations, because it has taken me very many hours to put this statement together. I believe that these allegations are malicious and were intended to smear and do harm to me. In the interests of justice, I ask you to be fair and ask the complainant to justify their actions. I may speak to Channel 4 about this, and as a subscriber of Private Eye magazine, I may contact them too. There is a lot of press interest around this subject at the moment, and given my background, my experience in the Middle East, and the support I have got from Christians aware, I believe that the accusations that I have breached party rules are totally spurious, malicious, and possibly verging on the illegal. The complainant does not seem to have checked their facts, and I think that I have demonstrated that. I would like to remind whoever deals with this matter that we do have a free press in this country, and receiving a letter in the post that is asking me to justify my sharing of information feels like intimidation, and I look at this as being a very serious matter. Anyone sending out a letter of this nature should be well aware that it could do a lot of damage to a person and cause them a lot of stress. So I hope this decision was taken after a thorough look at the evidence. What strikes me about these allegations is the pure lack of evidence. Beyond the selection of 6 posts, 5 of which do not carry any comments from me and that link to articles that are which are interesting, topical and important. I will not hesitate to contact a legal expert if this matter is not resolved as soon as possible. At the moment, I do not feel the need to do this because I trust that the Labour Party I trust that they are able to distinguish the difference between a real accusation and a fake one. I await your decision, and I hope that this will come soon. Damien Stone. I have copied in Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell and Shami Chakrabarti into this post, my statement, and as I say, I await the outcome, which will be in about 3 days' time, and I'll then wonder if I take any further action.